everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I wanted to talk to you about these products that I was sent from the company Arteza. I get a lot of requests in my email to do reviews of products, and most of them I just reject because, I mean, do I need to review eyeglasses? How are you going to see that? Am I going to put the glasses on my hands? You know, it's silly. I've received ones that are obviously for beauty people, about makeup brushes. I mean, all kinds of weird stuff. But when I received this one, I thought it sounded interesting because they said that their mission statement is to provide artist quality stuff, pens and paints and pads and papers and all the type of stuff, quilting rollers, all kinds of stuff at an affordable price. That's what they said. So I decided that I would let them send me this acrylic pad, which is a spiral bound pad that's supposed to have heavyweight paper in it, and then the acrylic paint. And the things that I wanted to do, I wanted to try gel printing with their paint because I have been using a student kind of a in-between grade paint, acrylic paint for gel printing this month. So I wanted to try that. They have some bigger ones that have a squishy pack, and I wanted to try that, but they sent me these smaller ones. So we'll see how they work. And then I was interested in this pad because it says it has heavy paper for acrylic painting, and I thought maybe it might make a good spiral bound art journal. The prices are decent, and I thought, if I could offer something at a better price to the people who are following my channel, that would be great. So let's open the pad first and see what it's got inside. Oh, that's interesting. Look, it's got I don't know if you can see it on the video. It's got grain to it. It's like almost like a canvas, only with a heavyweight paper. And then the opposite side is more smooth. So I'm pretty impressed with that, actually. And it looks like you can remove it on the spot. It has a score line that you could remove it if you wanted to give away your painting. There are 16 pieces inside, so they're 11 by 14. I am impressed. 246 pound is heavier than I normally use. The watercolor paper that I get is 190, and that's 400 GM for those who are in Europe. That's pretty cool. I like that. So we'll try that in a bit. Now the colors. This is 24 colors in a box. It's a nice little box, and there's a little cheat sheet here that has the colors listed, and then you can find, let's find out how you get them from here. Okay. So on here is printed the color name somewhere. Oh, there we go. This is lemon yellow, so then you can look on here and say that lemon yellow is a bright yellow. These are the artist colors, the names of the pigments and things. So that's cool. Looks like it's got trays, and you can take the trays out. At some point I'll swatch them because I just like doing that. I think it's useful to have swatches. Then you can just put them, when you're done, you can put them right back in the little storage box. That's kind of nice. And it looks like they've got everything from the brighter colors to more, neutral, earthy colors. Nice, nice. So what I'm interested in is, can I gel print with them? Because what would be better than to be able to get a whole bunch of colors for a reasonable price so that you could gel print all day long.
Okay, I'm back with my 8x10 gel plate and all the different trays of the acrylic paint from Arteza, and some soft rubber brayers, some paper, and I'm going to give these paints a good workout on the gel plate doing some mono printing with stencils. Today, when I'm making this video, it is the 3rd of March, and so I am doing that challenge with the gel printing, and I thought this was stencil day was a good day to try out a very classic use of this type of paint. So I'm just picking different colors. I laid down the stencil and then I pulled off some of the color through the large openings of the circle. Then I added some color back in, different colors, and made some patterns using some bubble wrap. And then I'm going to apply the titanium white. Titanium white is the most opaque paint in acrylics, so I really wanted to give it a good try to see that if it's opaque or not. And doing this technique, I lift up all the dried layers off of the plate with the white paint. So that was my first print, and I think that the paint did very well. I do notice that it dries quickly, which is not surprising where I live. The viscosity of the paint, the feeling of it is a little bit thinner than the other kind that I use most often, but it's working great on the plate. I think that, you know, having 24 colors to play with is going to be a lot of fun. So I get out a different stencil because it's still stencil day. And I try using some of the more fall colors or manly colors. Remember, these colors are the artist colors, so they're colors that you're used to seeing. You've seen them before. You'll see them again because they are the standard pigments that artists use. So I tried some sienna and some ochre and some, I can't remember what green I used, but that turned out really well. Same type of a technique. I put paint through the stencil using my smaller brayer, and then I picked up all the paint off the plate using the yellowish color, which is an ochre. So I'm still working in stencils. This is a homemade stencil, and I'm pulling up the paint through the stencil. It's also pulling it off the plate a little bit. I did notice that with those homemade stencils, acrylics seem to want to stick to them more than a store-bought stencil, but it makes an interesting effect. So I'm using this herringbone to pull off some of the paint. And then I'm going to try, I think it's a yellow that I end up trying, and then some red over the top of this to pull up the print. I see no difference in the pigments. These are intense pigments. The the tubes have a little circle on them that either is a full circle, full, you know, fully solid, half, or empty. And that's going to tell you, is it a translucent paint or is it a, what am I trying to say? Is it opaque or is it half and half? And that does seem to be that what I'm seeing as I'm using it is definitely what is indicated on the little tubes as to whether it's opaque or not. So that's a good little indicator when you're, especially if you were to be making a painting, wanting to know if one color is more see-through than another. So this time I was just using the titanium white. I've seen more opaque titanium whites than this, and I've seen less opaque titanium whites. So, you know, it's kind of halfway through. It would be nice if, in my case, I would really like to have a larger container of the titanium white because I use it so much in comparison to all the other colors. So that time I was just putting some white design over my print so that you could see the feathery design over the top. So now I'm trying out some blues and greens, I think. I did try out most of the colors, and I did swatch the colors too. So the yellow that I put on there is actually quite opaque for yellow. There is a lemon yellow that is very translucent, and then there is one that's called, I'm going to say it's medium yellow, I think, and it's quite opaque, which is surprising. So I pulled some of the paint off onto a scratch paper, and then I decided to add some other colors in over the top, this time using the ultramarine blue, I believe it is, just to build up some different layers of pattern onto my print using stencils. I like that turquoise color a lot. I think I use it more than once. Could I tell you what the name of it is right now? No. But you can look at the swatch at the end and figure it out. I might be in a turquoise phase, I'm not sure. So then I'm gonna again lift this using the titanium white as reactivating the paint, letting it marry to the pigment on the plate, and then pulling it off. And it is working perfectly. The color's intense, bright. I'm having a really good time with these paints. So I would recommend them as a good cost alternative if you're just starting out to get a lot of color, you know, a lot of different colors, 24 different colors. So this technique, I absolutely love this. The print that came off this is probably my favorite print so far that I've made this month. And we're now well into the month. When I made this, we weren't. But what I did was I put the Mars Black down, and then I put a stencil over the top, pulled up some of the Mars Black through the openings of the stencil, and then I used several different colors, bright red, bright blue, bright green, bright yellow, and I used my smaller 2-inch brayer to put the color through. And then I let that dry on the plate, which took almost no time. This paint dries really quickly, plus I live in the desert, so it might dry a little bit slower for other people, but for me, it's really quick. Then I put the titanium white over it and pulled the print, and I just love this print. I love it. I'm going to put it in my book that I'm planning on making of prints. Isn't that cool? That is just cool. Because the way the black collected around the edges, I just love it. I'm going to make a whole video of just doing that technique. So then the last thing that I did was I wanted to try out some layering with some flowers. So I cut out freehand shapes from a piece of the stuff that goes in between when you have a binder, that plastic stuff that's like little dividers. So I laid down these little, I did yellow, then I laid down these little circles. Then I put on some orange. My circle came up and I had to put it back on there. Stay still. Then I put on these freeform flower shapes that I cut out over the top of that. Pulled away the excess paint. And the piece of paper that I end up thinking that it's just scratch paper turns out really cool too. So I wanted to make some pastel colors. I wanted to try mixing some titanium with some of the other colors. The pink, I used the rose color, and the pink didn't really turn out very well. The rose color is extremely translucent, and so to put enough color into that titanium white would take a bit of doing to make it anything. But I mean, it's a very pastel pink, but that wasn't exactly what I was going for. So I don't know. I didn't like the pink as well. I'm also adding, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but for this process, I'm adding a slow drying agent medium to slow down the drying because I want everything to stay a little bit wet underneath there. That time I pulled off a bunch of stuff on accident because the scratch paper that I'm using is got a little bit of a paint on it. It's wanting to stick itself to the plate to pull, and then it's pulling off my little masks. Basically, this is layering masks is what it is. It's a technique. Then I used the pale green, which is a semi-transparent paint color. At the time that I was doing this, I didn't necessarily notice that there was that little indicator on the tubes until I was already swatching. Then I'm like, oh, okay. So then I put down some freeform cut stems and leaves and put some green paint, the pale green paint, try to pull that off. Then I pull off all the masks that I've applied with the hopes that the paint underneath is still wet. That's the reason that I used plastic, because I wanted the paint underneath to stay wet, and also the reason that I was trying to add in the slow drying medium to help it stay wet a little bit longer. But it didn't turn out exactly as I wanted, but it's cool. The orange in particular is really nice on there, but the pink and the purple were semi-transparent paints, and so I didn't have as much luck with them. So then I end up putting on some titanium white to pull off my print. And I make sure that I really, really burnish this both with my hands and with the side of my bone folder, which is a nice smooth rounded edge, so that I'm not poking holes in the gel plate. And there you have it. That's really a pretty awesome print right there. Okay, now on to testing out the pad of paper. I thought a good way to test out the paper and check out the texture on it and the heaviness of it would be to do my swatching. So I turned to the very last page in the book, and then I'm dividing up the page into 24 squares so that I can paint all the different paint colors from the box of paints. And I did notice that it's supposed to be 14-inch paper, but it's only 14 inches if you go all the way to the edge of the spiral. Otherwise, it's 13. The area that would be torn off if you were going to, sell or give away the painting would only be 13 inches wide. So then I'm using an acrylic brush and swatching each color into a square, keeping them in the trays because I plan to put all these colors back in the box and store them that way, because the trays lift out and the box is very sturdy, so it'll be a perfect way to store them and keep them nice. So I'm keeping them in the order that they came. And then I am painting them on to the squares and testing out that texture. And I'll give you a close-up of the swatch at the end. I'll take a photo of it and put it at the end so that you can see the texture. It's quite bumpy texture. It's interesting, but the paper is thick and heavy. It will be absolutely perfect as a mixed media journal, because I do not think that anything I did to that paper would make it warp or buckle. The paint isn't even affecting it. It's not making it, warp at all. So this is nice heavyweight paper. This is going to be a great journal for mixed media, collage, paper painting. I think that I could do a paper painting on this and sell it as is without, mounting it on anything or whatever. It's nice paper. I'm excited about that. During this process of swatching is when I discovered that you could gauge the opacity of the paint based on the little mark. See, it's a little square. That one's supposed to be completely opaque. So I did notice that some of the colors were very translucent, like the rose and the lemon yellow in particular. And then the ultramarine blue was very translucent. And then I realized that they're marked on the tubes, and I should have noticed that long before. So yeah, that's handy. When you look at the tube, just look at the little marking and you'll be able to tell if it's opaque or transparent or somewhere in between. So doing this process is a great way to test out the paint. It's a great way to test out the paper, and it's also a good practice of learning the artist's pigment colors so that you will recognize them when you see the names of the colors in the future. You can say, oh, I know what color that is. Color is very important to me, and so I'm sure I'm not the only one. In the description box below the video, there will be a link to where you can purchase these products. And believe me, good price. I recommend them. I think this will make a great art journal, and I think that these paints are really great if you're starting out. You can get a lot of colors for a good price, a good quality paint. So I suggest that you do that. So this is winding down to the end of my review of the Arteza acrylic paints and the acrylic paper spiral bound pad. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will have a picture of the color swatch at the end. That's it for me. Bye-bye.